Waiting for that one. Okay, now we are recording the session. Welcome back. Everybody in here agrees to be in that recording. If you have questions or don't want to be in the recording, you can leave and you can watch the recording later. I did not get any location to store these recordings yet. I will chase that again today. As you know, we are waiting for a location from your side where we can upload all the recordings on a daily basis. So let's see when we get that, and the moment we have it, I will send you all, as a reply to the invites, I will send you all the link for that one. Okay, let's start with the new materials, the notification management story. So what are we going to talk about? Notification, the notification feature from the platform is actually the capability to send out automated emails. Automated emails to customers, and that is what it's mostly used for. We can, however, also send out notifications to staff, to salespeople, or whatever. For instance, why do we want to send something to salespeople? Because we're also telling the customer that their subscription is about to expire, and it might be that is a good moment for the sales team to contact that customer to discuss if they're still happy with the product that they're having and whether they want to renew or whether it's something more that they require, and advise them to maybe upgrade to a different product. So that is one of the reasons why we use notifications. So let's look at what we're going to discuss today. We're going to look at those concepts again. When is an email triggered? How do you set up those emails? What is the structure of those email templates? What information can we put in, etc., etc. I will do a lot of demo on this one because I think that specifically this piece requires some extra information for you to get and to really understand and configure everything. Concepts, notifying customers, and the notification workspace, of course, are the three topics. Halfway, we will have a couple of Q&A moments as well. So the concepts that we're talking about. So what is a notification? Like I said, a notification is an email. And looking at the underlying architecture, it seems that at some point we have been contemplating not just allowing for emails, but also, for instance, for text messages, etc., etc. We never built that. So for us, a message in this case is an email to the customer that explains either specific events, states of the system. For instance, if an order fails, we can tell the customer that their order failed and that we are working on it. In the BCC field, we make sure that our support team, of course, is included, so they know about it as well, so they can actually start working on it to, for instance, prevent customers calling us. And of course, to show that, guys, we have an automated system, we are on top of things. So if an order fails, we will tell you prior to you telling us. And I think that the fact that we can do these kind of scenarios is a very powerful tool inside the platform to make sure that our customers actually know that we are somehow managing every single flow of this of what's happening in the system. So what is needed for such a notification to be sent? Well, first of all, of course, the first item we need is a template. How would that email look like? What's the content of an email that we send out when an order is failing? What's the content of an email when an order is placed? What's the content of an email that we send out if the subscription is about to expire and it's a subscription that will not automatically renew? And things like that. Of course, that means that we have to somehow make those templates generic, meaning that in that template, there needs to be some placeholders. Placeholders that we use to pull information from the customer's information, from the subscription information, etc., etc. So we can tell the customer in, I would almost say, a personalized way that his subscription for Office 365 is failing. Not if that customer has 10 subscriptions, it's not that useful to tell them, hey, one of your subscriptions is about to fail or is about to expire. You figure out which one. We can exactly tell the customer which subscription ID, which subscription, and when it's going to expire using those placeholders. I will tell you how those placeholders look like, where you can find the list of those placeholders, and how to use them in the notifications. Of course, there are a couple of common notification settings. What do you want to do with, for instance, an order placed? Do you want to tell the customer that his order was placed? If he does it himself, it's interesting to send another confirmation of that. But it might feel, at least for the customer, if it's all self-service, it might feel a little bit superfluous to, after he just said place order, that he receives an email that his order was placed, right? But that could be different. But things like subscriptions that are about to expire, we can put up a complete notification schedule on top of that. Same thing we can do, for instance, with credit cards that are expiring. You want to tell your customer at least once that the information, the payment information that you have on file for that customer is about to expire, and you cannot charge recurring fees to that payment method anymore. Meaning that eventually this customer will go on credit hold and his services will stop, right? And I said at least once because we can do a lot of notification schedule settings that we can use. Same thing about a schedule for subscription expiration. Even to the point where, remember the story about the service terms of a subscription, where we have the end of the subscription, the normal end date. Then we have that grace period. At the end of that grace period, we stop the subscription. We can tell 2 days in advance, guys, we are going to stop your subscription in 2 days. If you don't want that, now is the time to renew. And at the end of that hold period that we are about, or that Microsoft is about to destroy the services, those notifications can be sent as well. And I think that from a clarity perspective towards the customer, it helps them understand what they have and what is not there anymore. So first of all, what is a notification template? Basically, a reusable design of the emails on a content basis, using placeholders in that template for the system to replace with the actual information from the customer. So what do we put in such a template? Well, there is a structure there. If we're going to look at those notification templates, that we start with what message type are we talking about? So how will these messages be used? Because if we assign a message to something, we don't want to show a list of, let's say, hundreds of messages. We just want to show you the list of relevant messages. So order, messages about order will, of course, be showing if I say, okay, order placed message. Messages about subscription expiration is a different scenario. We will look at what message types there are and how to see them. Each message type also might have a different set of placeholders that are available for that message type. Because the rest of the placeholders might not be, let's say, relevant for that type of message. Of course, there is a message body, and that message body is a content. And I would actually want to talk about those two together, because the message body can be defined in HTML and in plain text. Or both, depending on what desire the customer had. And that is past tense. I will explain that a little bit later. But what I mean with this is I can set up a message body in HTML, including all the tags and all the beautification, cascading style sheets, etc., can be used there. Or we can do a plain text message where it just has the text, and that's about it. We can still use placeholders there, but of course we cannot use layout in plain text, etc. That also means that the message body has to be defined twice if you're doing this. We do not have an automation or artificial intelligence engine there that says, hey, if this is what you want in there, this is the plain text version and this is the HTML version. You can even send out two different messages. One, if a customer wants HTML, and another one if the customer wants plain text. And I'm going to show you that in a demonstration as well. The HTML email template will always be used if you do conversion to PDF. For invoices, most of our partners don't want to send just an HTML message. They want to use a PDF, I would almost say encapsulated, but a PDF document as an attachment to the email. And that PDF will be based upon the HTML template. We will look at all of that. So we also have specific triggers. A message is always triggered by Cloud Blue, commerce in this case, when something happens on the platform. Any action performed in billing by a customer or reseller can result in a system operation or an event, such as account creation, order placement, subscription upgrade, invoice generation, and we can, not have to, but can send a notification out on all of those events. This is a choice. If you leave your platform with all the standard settings, I think that if a customer onboards and buys his first subscription and pays that one using a credit card, the customer receives 5 emails within 5 minutes. The first one will be that his account is created. The second one is that he placed an order. The third one is that he made a payment for that order. The fourth one is that his subscription is provisioned. And the fifth one is that an invoice has been generated. So you can also see that you have to think about what you want to send out, because receiving 5 messages from the same platform in I think the time span of 5 minutes, to me almost feels like spamming. They're all relevant messages from a one-by-one perspective, but you might not want to send them out, all of them. The order placement, if the customer did that, and his account creation, maybe we can skip those. Payment, if the customer actively gives in his credit card, etc., etc., we can. It's maybe a good idea to confirm that. The provisioned order is also a good one, because in that template you can set, for instance, links to white papers, links to Q&A pages, etc., making sure that the customer not only has access to the service itself, but also to some at least guiding info to do the first couple of actions within that service himself. And of course, eventually that customer needs an invoice for maybe his billing team, his financial team. So those are a couple of things that you have to keep in mind when you're looking at notifications. Can we send out a notification for everything in the platform? We absolutely can, but you have to ask yourself, do you want to do that? What message types do we have? Well, the first one is account notifications. You see four bullets below it. When an account is transferred, when there is an outstanding balance for that customer. In other words, when there is a risk for that account to go on credit hold or whatever, we can send a notification. But we could also send notifications if that customer is placed on credit hold. That's an account notification as well. Do we want that? It depends. There are order notifications. Well, you again see the bullets. Order canceled, renewal confirmation. There was a renewal order placed automatically, and it went through. There you go. Charge failed might be an interesting one, that we try to charge the card of a customer. If that one fails, whatever happens, it could also be a billing order. If that happens, it means that the customer, for the system at least, that the customer did not pay. So again, that customer is in risk of getting put on hold because charges failed towards the credit card, or that the credit card has expired. We can do welcome emails for subscriptions and everything below it. If you have pay-as-you-go scenarios, or no, limited amounts of, for instance, traffic, where the customer has 2 gigs of network traffic included in his subscription and everything else is either overuse or something else, we can also send out notifications. This piece of notification, or these types of notifications, are getting less and less familiar. We're getting rid of this because most of the time nowadays, it's not, hey, you have 2 gigs included. Everything that is measured is pay as you go. So there is no limit. So we cannot measure that it is near the limit or over the limit either. We can do everything about accounts receivable documents, those financial documents. For the credit card, I already talked about this one. Talked about credit card expiration, or if, for instance, there is a 3D secure credit card requirement and we try to get that payment in, and the credit card company says, no, can do, we need that credit card confirmation first. That means that the customer has to go into his customer control panel and confirm that payment to make sure that, again, that customer does not go on credit hold. So there are a couple of notifications. If you use live payments in the system, there are a couple of items to use to make sure that the payments actually come in. And the last one are confirmation emails to verify your confirmation. If a customer changed his password, or if the customer wants his password changed, you can also send notifications there. So those are the types, or let's say the classifications of the notifications that we have. We will see where to find that and what you can do with that. We have the placeholders. Basically, it's a string of characters that temporarily takes place of the final customer order or account specific data. So basically, it knows that we will pull this from the database and insert it at that specific location. And we have 2 types. Let's say we have an email in this. This is what we want to send out. And you see a couple of bold items. You see the name of the customer, first name or whatever, right? This is something that we want to personalize for this customer, for any customer. We see a date, an end date for something, and we do have an email address. So what are we going to do? We need those 3 items replaced with what we call a placeholder. And those placeholders look like these: at, then the field name and an at. There is a list of items at the bottom of those notification templates, but this is how you will recognize whether or not something is a placeholder. At, field name, at. Thing is that we do have 2 types of placeholders. We've got single fields, like I said, starts with double ats and ends with an at, and anything between it is the field name. Or we have a data set. A data set the first item starts with ## and ends with a hash, and the last item of that data set starts with #/ and ends with another hash. So I would almost say it's just like HTML code, where we use the smaller and larger signs to start something, and then the smaller slash sign and the larger item with to end the let's say the field. But it's similar. So we have the subscription name, for instance, at subscription _ name at, that is a single data field. And when we have a data set, we have the hash data list hash as the starter, and anything between it will be used as a list of data that we're pulling from the database. And we have the hash / detail list hash to finalize that item. Since some of the things in a template look familiar or are the same, if we send out, for instance, a letter on paper, what do we have? We have a letter header. And when you look at your company letter header, they're always the same, right? There is a logo there, etc., etc. We do the same thing in the notifications, because we don't want you, for instance, if your style changes, to go into every single of those notification templates to change just the look and feel of the header, because it would be useless to do that. You make errors of it. There's a lot of information or a lot of work involved to get just one item change in there. So we are using also a subtemplates, and subtemplates just look like a single data field placeholder. So they look like at and an at, and the only difference is now there is a notification template name in between. An example would be the header, for instance, at header at. And you find it in the content or the body of that notification template. I will show all this later in my demonstration. Another one that we have is a footer. So in this case, at footer, at is not a, let's say, is not a placeholder to pull information from the database. It's a placeholder to pull a part of a notification template into that location. So a piece of text, a piece of layout, etc., etc. Another subtemplate that we have is the cascading style sheet. You don't want to set up the style of your emails in every individual email. You want to have a style subtemplate that we pull in to the HTML bodies, so that every single one of those bodies will have that same look, or every one of those notifications will have the same look and feel, same colors, same font type, etc., etc. So let me quickly log in to a system. Here we are. Let's log out, and let me do this. Let me log in again to make sure that I'm not somewhere expired. These are notifications that you will find in billing. And let me zoom a little bit. Under system settings, you will find under system the notifications option. Every single level of a seller type object can configure those notifications. So the provider can configure them and share it with his resellers. The reseller in that case can go in and changes it to his liking if needed. Of course, customers can only receive notifications, but resellers can build their own notifications or use notifications that are shared with them from the layer up. So here we have our notification templates. By default, there's a list of 90. And you see here already a couple of examples of placeholders. Not just are these placeholders used in the body of the notification, but also as 2 addresses and 2 names. So in this case, we're sending an email to the billing account of the billing contact email address of the customer. And we're not using that person's name, but we just send it to the company name. That's what I see on these 2 placeholders. You can also use it. There we go again. We have the same issue. You can also use it, those placeholders, in your subject. Anything in the configuration of that notification template, you can use your placeholders for it. Be aware that if you don't use the space here, there's a space here in between, right? That those placeholders don't have a space included, and the system does not add a space there. So in that case, you would have those 2 order types and document numbers sitting next to each other. So be aware that the layout is as it is shown. If you want 2 placeholders to be a single word or a single, at least from the appearance, to be a single word, you just omit that space there. Is that a question? Do we have a question? Okay. There we go. Let's go back to the slides. Remove that. We have our notification settings. And again, part of those notification settings are what we call the common notification settings. And there are a couple that are of relevance. Let me show you where they are. I'm going back to my settings, notifications, and we have what we call common notification settings in here. So what are the common notification settings? There are a couple of general settings that would help you configure the look and feel of these notifications. For instance, if you want in your header, you want the URL to your customer control panel or the URL to your website to be showing. Of course, you don't want to type it in all the time and every time. You can use these fields to do that. Just by going in here, and the URL to my customer control panel in this case would be something like, okay, let's copy this part and put it in here. And let's say this is my website as well. I'm going to save this. So now everywhere where I'm pulling that URL to the control panel, it will replace it with https demo aks.in.zone. That's a clickable, that will be a clickable link. Customer receives an email, wants to go to his customer control panel, he just clicks the link and logs it, right? That's how you want it. We also have a URL to your logo, and that is a key thing. This is not the logo itself. What you have to define here is the link to that image so that when the customer receives it, his email client, if required, will pull that logo from that location and display it in his Outlook or in whatever email client he has. This is all that story about, do we want to show images immediately, yes or no? And then we've got specific notification templates. Do we want to use them, yes or no? Do we want to send out a confirmation email just to verify, hey, click here to confirm your email address, right? That's what we're talking about. Do we want to send out customers overdue balance? Hey, we see that you haven't paid your invoice for the last 3 months, whatever. If an account is put on credit hold, we can send out this template. We placed an order, etc., etc. You see that there are a lot of templates that I can use. If I click edit, I can change those or I can remove them. If I don't want the confirmation email to be sent, I just remove that template from this field, and the system knows, hey, there is no template to be used in this case. I'm going to cancel this because I don't want to mess with other demonstrations that my team has, but I can just remove whatever I want. Those are the common notification settings. Invoice notification templates. What are we talking about? We are talking about refunds we can send out. We can talk about invoices. The notification type is AR document. Those are that list that we have here. Do we want invoice? Do we want credit memo? Do we want debit memo? Do we want refunds? What do we want to send and what don't we want to send? Everything that is set here will automatically be sent when it is applicable. So if I generate a credit memo for a customer, the customer will receive an email on his registered email address that a credit memo has been set at his account. We also looked at those URLs. We already discussed that, so I'm going to skip this. The notification schedules, I'm going to do that a little bit later, but it's a predefined period where we have, for instance, a couple of, let's say, milestone points in subscriptions or milestone points in a credit card's life cycle. For the credit card, it's fairly simple. There is an end date, and we have the time before and the time after. So we can send 30 days before expiration. We can send the customer an email that says, hey, we want to, don't forget to replace your credit card. I see your hands up. Tell me.
Yes, I want to know if there is a way to configure an event for first login after terms and conditions change. Because I would like to have the confirmation from the customer about
the terms and condition change.
Yes.
I would have to look that one up. I am not entirely sure we have a standard notification for that. We do have the obligation, if the customer logs into his customer control panel, that if you change it, that he has to accept them again. But if that customer does not have anything to do in his customer control panel, it could take months before he sees it.
Yes, but at least have the confirmation from the customer that logs in the customer panel.
Yeah, I know. I see what you mean. I'm not 100% sure if we can do that.
Okay.
There is a way of doing it without an event. I will show you that. Let me make a note that I demonstrate that.
Okay, thank you.
Let me quickly make a note that I demonstrate that later. Remind me if I don't.
Okay.
All right. So what are we talking about further? Well, we have all kinds of scenarios. There is a symptom, so we want to do something, right? So if I'm getting a flu or I'm getting the first symptom of a cold, how do I stop it in the early stage? Well, I can go to the pharmacy, get some medicine. And that is exactly what we try to explain here when we talk about subscription expiration. The first thing, when would you want to notify your customer? Well, that might even depend on the type of subscription or the type of product. In our case, we decided that 2 days before expiration is good, and we are going to send that email, or maybe not always. And there are a couple of send conditions that I can do. The first one being always send it. So if the customer's subscription is about to end on in 2 days, and the customer already placed a renewal order, we still send this to him. It's a little bit weird, but it can be done. We can also do this if the customer's account is active. Why would that be relevant? Well, it's relevant because a customer's account on hold, we can require him or tell him that his subscription is about to expire, but he cannot change that fact because he has to pay first. So I would say it's not logical to send a customer account on hold a notification that his subscription is about to expire. On the other hand, it could still be logical if we want to put pressure on him and say, hey, not only do you need to pay us and you don't have access to your subscription at this point, but you could also lose your subscription because your subscription is about to expire. And if you don't place a renewal order, you will lose your subscription. And guess what? You cannot place a renewal order because you are on hold. So you have to quickly pay. A couple of things. And the last one is based on the renewal order, if it's already there or not. So if I find a renewal order 2 days ago, guess what I'm going to do? I'm not going to send a subscription expiration notification because I know that the customer or the system already took care of that. This is for subscription expiration. We can do the same thing for credit card. And we also have send conditions. One would be if it's the default payment method. Remember that billing order story that we had. The billing order for recurring payments, we will always use the default payment method for that. So if the default payment method is expired, we cannot charge the customer. Anything else, I would personally not care about. So for me, the default payment method is the key thing. However, we can send it out for all payment methods. And even anything but the default payment method. I really do not see why we would want to do that, because unless you have a different schedule. You send it for the default payment method, you send it out 5 times because it's very important, and all but the default payment methods, we send it out once, for instance, because they're not that important for us. Another thing that we might want to send out is for all payment method without consent, where the customer needs to, every once in a while, approve that we can still keep using this payment method. And the moment that consent is pulled in, we want to tell the customer. So think about the game of chess. To win, you must make a move, and each piece can move only in a certain way. Knowing which move to make comes with insight and knowledge. And that is exactly where we want to go when we're looking at notifications. Because what do we configure where? Of course, the common notification settings, we define user notifications, account notifications, financial doc notification templates, etc. All those templates are found there. When we are doing something about a subscription, we use subscription notifications and we define those in the service plan or in the resource rates. Welcome emails, for instance, limit notifications, but also subscription expiration notifications are set in the service plan. I will show you where. For the rest, we can have events, account created, password reset, all those kind of things. We can do that. We can basically do whatever notification, depending on what type of event it is, because that's bound, right? If I have an account notification, account is put on hold, we will send an account notifications that the account is on credit hold. If a subscription, if provisioning fails, which is also an event, we can send out a notification that provisioning failed. We can send it to the customer, BCC to support or to a specific team. They fix it, notify the customer that they fixed the issue and that provisioning now continues. We can set payment notifications and payment method expiration notifications for customer classes. For instance, small customers, they have probably got their personal credit card in there. So if the credit card expires, they probably have received a new one. So let's send this to them, let's say within 2-3 weeks before expiration point of that credit card. However, if we have a payment method, a credit card from an enterprise, larger organization, where maybe 2 people first need to sign off before they can enter that credit card number into the system, you might want to send it a little bit earlier. And for instance, order notifications, fraud screening, cancellation, provisioning failed notifications are all done in the order flows themselves, and we can set order notifications for that. So before I continue with another chapter, what questions do you have? If you don't have questions, give me a thumbs up, please. I see thumbs up. Perfect. Thank you very much. That means I'm going to continue. Click. There we go. So notifying your customers. The thing is that what happens if your financial expert starts receiving messages about issues with Office 365 service provisioning? I would say they'll probably filter them out and simply ignore them. What if these call to action notifications were addressed to technical people? Well, that's a key thing. Cloud Blue allows you to set the audience for the right events or the right types of email to the right contacts. And a key thing to understand is that each customer could have 3 contacts. We've got an administrative contact, that's the contract owner. We've got a billing contact, and we've got a technical contact. So, of course, if they are the same, it doesn't matter which one you choose. But if a customer is thinking wisely and they're a little bit larger, they will make sure that those contact informations are set up correct so that the right people receive the right information. So what do we suggest? Well, things like order cancellation is maybe interesting for the administrative contact. Somebody bought something and somebody canceled that order. Hey, that's strange because we need that product. Contract owner needs to know about that. For billing, if an order is placed or follow-up invoices, probably needs to go to the financial department of the customer. And of course, service creation failed, or you have to do something to make it finally work. An example would be vanity domain for Office 365, where we need a TXT record, for instance, or an MX record, or both, set up in your domain zone to make Microsoft accept that domain as the vanity domain to handle. If you don't do that, the service will be created, but you will not be able to use that domain on Microsoft. So you cannot send out using that domain, you cannot receive email using that domain. So that might be information to send to a technical person. They probably know how to add MX record to their DNS zone, etc., etc. We can also use distribution groups. This is a complete different feature that I will discuss a little bit later. So I'm going to quickly go through it. But this is that story that I wanted to look at when we're facing a terms and conditions change, for instance. Because you will probably not change terms and conditions for all products at the same time. You might change it, for instance, because Microsoft changed it. In that case, you can use distribution lists based on these criteria: specific customer class, or specific subscriptions, or the account status. And specific subscription could be, again, bound to, for instance, a service template, knowing that everybody that has an Office 365 subscription will now get that notification that they have to log into their environment and accept the new terms and conditions. That is the demo that I'm going to do a little bit later. So remind me that I'm going to do this one. User notifications we send to specific users. If I want my password changed, if I forget my password, this one will send out a notification that gives me a link to reset my password, for instance. And then I can send notifications manually. For instance, to a specific customer or to a specific distribution list. Or if a customer calls me and says, hey, I did not receive that one, or I accidentally threw it away because I was on vacation and I selected all unread emails and did a delete on that. And now I'm missing an invoice or a credit memo or a payment or whatever. I can resend that one as well. And we have those on-event notifications as well. In our system, a lot of things are driven by events, and we can use those events to use to send out an email. Per schedule is the most used item. I'm thinking about subscription expiration. I'm thinking about payment method expiration, and I'm thinking about overdue balance. The fourth one, payment method expiration due to no consent, is a new one. I don't know if we use that very much because it would also depend on the payment provider giving us that information back at some point. So before I go to the workspace and into my demonstration, what questions do you have? If none, again, please give me a thumbs up. All right, thank you very much. Okay, so let me go to the workspace, and I think I already gave it. But here we are in billing, under system settings. You will find all the notification settings, and they might not completely look the same from a provider to reseller basis, but 90% is. Under settings, you have this screen where you have all those choices. Really 8. If I take the first one, let me take a pen out, the notification templates, this one, and I click it, I end up in this screen. So let's look at that one in a second and open a notification. First of all, we can add new templates or we can clone existing ones. To be honest, if I change something myself, I'm actually normally too lazy to build a new one because there's a lot to know. What type is it, etc., etc. I'm using clone existing most of the time, and then I wipe the content and put my own content in. But I'm using a template that I see in the list of items that I want to use, and I'm showing you how to see that in a sec. To see. That means that I need to have that specific type and that specific sub-templates, etc. So I prefer to clone it instead of using the add new notification template. But that's my way of working. We have a search menu here, pretty elaborate. We can use addresses, 2 names, if only to verify if you're still sending information to the correct person. And then we've got the list of templates themselves here. If you click one of those templates, you get the details. And here you see the 4 different tabs, the general tab with the meta information. What is the message type? What is the message category? What's the template name? So this is meta. Let me show that. Anything above here is meta information. This is actual logical information. And because here I see what the customer is seeing in his subject line, in his, and to whom we are sending this information, and in a from which person or account does this seem to come. Whether it's active or not, if it's visible to resellers. In other words, do I share this with my resellers so they can adapt it to their need, or do we want our resellers to recreate it from scratch? And then secure body is, do we want to store all the information in the logs, or do we just store the fact that we did send out this notification? And then we have our list at the bottom. We have our list of placeholders. And you see that for a AR docs notification, we do have 269 placeholders available. So the chances are very small that you want something in there that we don't have available. We already discussed the common notification setting, so I'm not going into that one very deep. And this is something I'm going to do after my little demo. So let me first go into my environment and go to System Settings, Notifications. There's my notifications, and I'm going to use a notification template and just use the first one to demonstrate a couple of things. The first thing that I showed you is, of course, the message type, the template name, and the message category, as well as the message subject. So this customer receiving this email will see something like welcome email hyphen hosted exchange. So he opens it and sees all the information that I want to talk about. What I don't like about this one, and that is why I always use this one as a demonstration, is the fact that I'm using the to address here. What does it mean? It means that we're sending this to the financial contact of the customer. Why don't I like it? Well, not in general that I don't like sending emails to the billing contact. But where does it come from? It comes from the technical contact. For me, that's a discrepancy. These two need to be the same. If I send from tech, I need to send to tech. If I send from billing, I need to send to billing. If I send from admin contact, I need to send to admin contact. Why is that? Because what do 99.999% of the people, when they have a question about an email, they hit reply. So now there's a financial person that has something that is not clear. He hits replies, goes to the technical contact. Technical contact has to forward it maybe to the financial contact in his company to answer that question. So I want those two to match. So who do I send it from and who do I send it to? Well, that depends on what I want to tell in this email. So what is the content of this email? And there is a HTML item there where the top part is the same as the general tab, but here in the HTML message, I see the actual email, including all the HTML tags and placeholders, etc., etc. So what am I telling here? I'm speaking about a subscription with a subscription name and a subscription ID, where I specify that to make this work, that somebody needs to update the MX records. Guess what? I think that the average billing person will not know what this is about. So this is information for a technical contact. So the send from tech contact is a good one, but I would want to send it also to the customer accounts technical contact, so that that happens, everything happens correct. Another reason why I'm using this as an example is that you have to think about, what am I sending out? Am I sending out HTML messages? Am I sending out plain text messages? Or am I sending out possibly both? I'm going to show you where to set that up, by the way. The thing is that if I go to the same location in the plain text message, here you see no HTML information, but still those placeholders in there. And the moment I'm at that location where we talk about MX records, the information is completely different. The information that I'm sending in an HTML message is something like server 1, server 2, server 3, etc., etc. Here we are talking about hosted messaging, hosted msexchange.com with a whole extra suffix behind it. So make sure that those templates not only are are similar, but also send out the correct information in both ways. So how do I edit this? Well, there is at the bottom, there is an edit button. And as you see, I do not change this. That can only be done on the general tab because it's just a reflection of what's on the general tab. But I can change my plain text message here in this edit box. And to look at the placeholders, here we have the full list of placeholders. I always use 100 on a page. So I only have 2 pages. We've got customer account admin contact. We also have a customer account billing contact email, and we have a customer account technical contact email. That is for business customers. If we have personal accounts, so consumer accounts, we use that information. So it depends on what you want to do. How do I revert this one into a placeholder? We copy this, put add in front of it, put an @ sign behind it, all close together, and now it has become a placeholder. So lots of information available. The same thing, by the way, for the vendor account. We've got an admin contact. We also have a billing contact for the vendor. And we've got a, where are we? We've got a technical contact. What I don't understand is that for the vendor, we do have a person, because if I sell, I'm a business. So, but it's obviously possible that a consumer can become a reseller. That's why this is there. Technically, it's possible. From a business perspective, we hardly see it happen. But it's technically possible. That's why we have all this. So those are our placeholders. And then it is interesting to look at where this template is used. So this is where I can see if this template is used, and if so, where it is used. So these are welcome emails, and a welcome email is something that I would say is part of a subscription. So customer ordered this. Where do I do that? I set it up on our service plans. And we do that here. Notification about service provisioning. And let me assign this specific one that I had just now. So notification about service provisioning. Which one do I want? I want that welcome email hosted exchange to show. I'm going to remove it later, and I'm saving it. So if I now go back to those notification settings, to the notification templates, and open that specific email, I will see that it is used for this specific service plan. So you see, if you make a change, who would, or what use case would be affected if I make changes to that notification template. Let me quickly remove it because it's not a logical email to put in there. I go edit, and I'm going to remove this template. Save. So that is the look and feel of the user interface. Well, let's look at the template themselves. As I said, if I want to change this one into the technical contact, edit this, and the easiest and shortest way would be do this, tech contact email, and you've done it. You see that I can add items here. I can change the message category if I want to, but the message type still stays a subscription notification. Canceling this one, this change, because I want to do this demo next week as well with your colleagues in the other training. Let's look at the HTML message. The HTML message, of course, starts with HTML and header and meta name, etc., etc. And this is where we have our first sub-template. This is where we have the style. The style is actually the cascading style sheet for HTML emails, meaning that I only have to change that style in one place, namely find the style template, and I'm going to show you a little bit later, and adapt it, and every email sent out from that moment will have that changed style. Other font type, other colors, etc., etc. The same thing for, this is all the header. Then we start with the body, and the body has a header sub-template. That is just that letter header, right? Where it says this is coming from AMX in Bogota, etc., etc. That's all the information we find here. So there is a sub-template called header. And for the rest, it's just HTML. So I start a table here where we put in all kinds of information, user login. Here we end that table, and we're just starting with paragraphs where every once in a while we use the placeholders. Here, for instance, we have the vendor account URL to CP. Vendor account URL to CP is that link that I just showed you in the common notification settings. So we're pulling, in this case, this link, URL to CP. That's this one. And further, there's a lot down the line. So let's look at that style and that header template. How do I search for those? Well, by just typing style. And here we have it. We see that it's a sub-template. Some of these fields are filled out. Ignore that because they will not actually be used because the information from the actual template is used. And since this is a cascading style sheet, I hope you're not surprised that the body of a plain text does not have a style set up. This is the plain text message. Here we have it. Because in plain text messages, there is no style possible. So I only see something in the HTML item. HTML message, we have the cascading style sheet with colors, fonts, font types, etc., etc. It's up to you. So this is pasted, this piece of HTML code, let's call it that. I know it's not code, but HTML information is pasted. Let me reset the search in the HTML message at this point. So here we will see that information. It just pastes that at that location. So if you look at the source code of the or the source of the email that is received by the customer, you will see that information in there. The same thing for the header. We have a header. And the header, again, is a subtemplate. This time there is a header in plain text, because also plain text can have that letterhead where we have URLs, control panel links, etc. And of course, in HTML, we have a table, again, table rows and table delimiters, where we display the logo in this case. We have a vendor account address. At the bottom, we are looking at the left column of that item. And we have our table headers, mail. Where do we go to table row? Here we go to the second column of that item. And we close the table. And that information, including all those placeholders, again, of course, will be placed at the spot that we add that line at header at in the HTML code. But in this case, also in the plain text one. Here you have it. And then there are more. At the bottom, I haven't shown you that one. We have the possibility of setting up a notification signature as a notification subtemplate. There is a footer notification subtemplate, etc., etc. All that can be done. And the advantage of using those is I can change only the notification signature, and every email going out from that moment will have a different look and feel at the bottom of that email. Makes it very, very flexible, and makes it also possible to have different headers for different types of notifications, because you can create a header 1 subtemplate and a header 2 subtemplate, header 3 subtemplate, and call those applicable where needed with at header 1 at and at header 2 at. So you can, I would almost say, do very cool things. Another thing that needs some configuration, or might need some configuration, is subscription expirations. So what can we do on subscription expiration? For that, I'm going back to the notification option. Here we have subscription expiration, and I'm not going to build one. I'm just going to show you what you can configure. First of all, you have a hosting subscription expiration. How do I assign it? I assign it by going into that service template and use the, where is it? I always have to find it here, the notification schedule. So in this case, the hosting subscription expiration is the actual one being used for this specific service plan. So what does that mean for sending out notifications? Well, let's look at that. Hosting subscription expiration. We've got our schedule details. So here we have it. We have send conditions. In these 3 cases, we will send this only if a renewal order is not placed, and only this one will be sent always. We can also specify when it is relevant. Do we send this notification to all subscriptions? No, we send it only to subscriptions that do not have auto renewal enabled. This one as well. So for a non-auto renewing subscription, we send a notification 15 days before and 5 days before expiration, because we will want to tell the customer that, hey, you have to manually renew it. Don't forget that. The same thing we can do with auto renewing subscriptions, where we have a different content, because what we can say here is your subscription is about to renew, not about to expire, but about to renew. If you don't want that, this is in the, you have to do this and this. So in this case, I don't like this notification because it should be that one, the auto renew. So now we have to go to the templates and look what is in that notification if you want to know that. We do it before the expiration date. So here's your base point. Those are those 3 moments in the subscription lifecycle that you set up using the service terms. The first one being 0-day point, meaning, okay, this is the end date of the subscription. So 15 days and 5 days, and then 15 days and 2 days before that. Then on the day of expiration, we tell the customer that their subscription has expired. We always do that. Why do we always do that? Because the moment the customer renewed it, the expiration date is forwarded for, let's say, the next subscription period. So that could be a month or a year. So we will never reach that if a renewal order is placed. That's why we can always do that. Then we have the shutdown date. That is the date at the end. That is the day of the end of the grace period. Microsoft, after 30 days, your subscription has expired and is stopped. That means that you cannot access your subscription anymore, etc., etc., etc. And the last one is the termination date, the end of the hold period. You can do that at the same moment. You can also warn them 2 or 3 days before. I'm going to do that. I don't want the customer to just lose his things and then tell me, hey, you didn't tell me. Well, I did tell him 4 times already, but let's be honest, we've got customers that want to be noticed at the last minute. In this case, what am I going to do? I'm going to look at the termination date, and I want to do it 3 days before or 5 days before. So I'm going to add a schedule where the base point in this case is the termination date. And I want 5 days before termination, I want to send a notification. Where are we? Let's take 50 on a page. I'm going to use this one. The subscription has expired and will be terminated soon, because it is not terminated yet. In 5 days, it will be terminated. So I will want to talk about this one. When am I going to do that? Always. All subscriptions, etc., etc. And I want to make this an active line in there. So now we created one. We can do the same thing with the shutdown date. Shutdown date is less important because if the customer sees that his subscription has stopped, they will probably call me anyway, and I can explain to them that we already sent him 3 times a notification that this is going to happen and he didn't act on it. But this one is tricky because this one, if he sees this, he will have lost his data already. So I want to warn him a little bit earlier, and this is how I'm doing it. So there's a lot possible to automate in the platform so that your customers know what is going to happen, what is happening around their subscriptions, etc., etc. Let me go back to my slides. This is my subscription details where I add a detail. If you want to create a new schedule, and I'm going to quickly show you that, I'm not going to fill it completely. There are 2 options. Let me go to subscription expiration here. I add a new, the problem is I cannot clone. I can delete, but I cannot clone expiration schedules. So I'm going to call it AMX Demo 1, save it, and that's it. So I have created, and you will notice that in billing very often, that you create what I always call an empty box, because the placeholder is there, the box is there to add those details in, but there are no schedule details available. So you have to go in and add details for this specific type of service. And after that, of course, you also have to make sure, let me delete this, to assign it to the appropriate service plan or service plans. Going back to my notifications, to my expiration schedules, in this hosting subscription expiration, you can see which subscriptions would get these notifications. Meaning that these subscriptions are bound to that service plan that has this notification schedule set. That means that these subscriptions will be receiving that information. So let me now do that demo that I promised, because it all has to do with distribution lists. This is the demo that I'm not sure who asked for it, but it was that story about the terms and conditions. Is there an event that I can use to send out a notification that terms and conditions have changed? I have not found anything there. So what I want to do is I want to manually notify those customers. And what my use case in this example is that my customer or my terms and conditions changed for a specific product, let's say Microsoft. So where do you go? In this case, maybe a little bit weird, but you do this under that header. In billing, there is operations, and you see the customers, reseller subscriptions, but there's more underneath it. I'm not sure why they hid it this way. Probably because you don't use that very often, and the rest you do use. But here is the option for distribution lists. And what can I do with distribution lists? I can add one or send an email to it. In this case, I'm going to add a new one. Distribution list name, demo, distri list. And I have to have prepared a notification template. So I'm just going to pick one. In this case, you have to first prepare a notification that says, hey, be aware the terms and conditions have changed. Click here to log into your customer control panel and accept those terms and conditions. You have to make that one first in the templates section. But let's look at it. And the thing is that I can either use individual accounts and select them all, which is a lot of work, especially if you have people changing a lot. So I'm going to say send to all, but I'm not going to send to actually everybody, but I'm going to send them to a specific plan category. And this is another point where the plan category comes in. So if I grouped all my Microsoft products in one plan category, I can just select that plan, and everybody that has a plan from that category will receive this email. Plan category, Microsoft 365 Commercial and CE, add. And now I finish this. I haven't sent anything yet. I only configured what to send to which accounts at what moment. Well, not even the at what moment, because I'm going to do it now. The delivery ID is one of those lists. In this case, there is only one. Next. And in this case, I see that it will be sent to 0 accounts. That means that nobody has a subscription to that specific plan category. So I want to change it because I want to look at something that gives me some numbers. Edit this. Let me go for, let's do other services. Save. Next. Again, 0 accounts. Do I have customers that have subscribed to something? Or did I only demonstrate it? Subscriptions. That's the problem, probably. Alex Grant. Subscriptions, nothing. So I don't have customers that subscribe to something. You see, I'm a very successful distributor. I've got 6 customers and none of them bought something. What I can do is I can log in and see at reseller level and do the same demonstration. But this is how you could send those terms and conditions change to your customers that are subscribed to a specific set of products. Would that come close? I'm not sure who asked this, but would that come close to a solution to your challenge?
Yes, I was thinking that it could be automatically set when I change the document and to
No,
send
no,
for
that
all
is a shame, but that's not the case. No.
Okay.
But if you change the terms and conditions, you can quickly do this afterwards.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, this is at least a better workaround than having to send it manually. But I know it's not entirely what you want, but this comes closest.
Okay.
Perfect. Let me go back to my slides. We've got our operations under operations.
Yay.
Hey, tell me.
Yay. Another thing that I would like to question about this one.
Yeah.
Let's say I need to send a notification to all customers, like a distribution list for customers with credit cards. Is it possible?
What do you want
I
to
mean?
send there? What do you want to send there?
Like this. Some time ago we had an issue with the credit card key, and then we had to send an email to all of them to ask them to register again their credit cards because we lost the, so what we did was we got the report for the credit card and then we sent it manually. But is there a way to do it without having to extract information from the system and then send the email? Because that's what we did. We extracted
I can imagine.
the credit card.
My first question would be, are these people across all kinds of customer classes, or is this a specific customer class?
No, they are across several different customer classes. Well, they usually are in 2 or 3 or 4 customer classes, but they have, like, it's like this. I have 2 main payment methods. I have the credit card and I have the boleto, which would be an invoice kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So for all plan categories, and for most plan categories, for these plan categories, for these customers that use credit cards, they are different customer classes, but they could use both of them, credit cards or the boleto one. So, you being a customer class doesn't mean you are using a credit card. You could be using any of those, but you would be in 2 or 3 different customer classes anyway.
There is a tricky thing because I can add a customer class criterion.
Okay.
And that's probably not what you want.
No.
Because that is an issue. I'm being called by somebody. Let me take that in 5 minutes. I'll call him back because I know what this is about. I can set a customer class criterion, but that is not what is required.
No.
But you can do it. The problem is that you would probably have also got people that do not have a registered credit card. So that is maybe not the option. Let me see if I can do something with payment methods. Not really. I can do reminders based on no consent payment methods. But add a new payment method expiration schedule is also not good because those payment methods are not expired. According to the system, they're still valid.
Yes.
To be honest, I think that we don't have anything here.
Okay.
I think it comes down to extracting the payment method type and doing it as you did it before.
Yeah, I'm also asking this. Yes, I'm also asking this because I'll probably have to do that again when we have the upgrade, because we will have a new plugin for it. So we possibly have to ask them to, register the cards again. So this is why I'm asking. And maybe, and also it could happen again and they lose the key or something for some reason, because we lost the key due to an upgrade or update. So I was just trying to see if there was an easier way to do that.
Yeah, there is an easy way to extract that information.
Yeah. That's what I told you, that the
Yeah.
report we use mostly is this one.
Yeah, because that's the only thing that we have
Yeah.
at this moment.
Yeah.
Where we have to check, do we only do that for the default payment method or for anyone?
Yes.
And then you can verify it. But I think that
Yeah.
looking at what you want, this is the only thing that we have native to make this work.
Yeah. Well, anyways, thank you. Maybe you could
You're
think
welcome.
of something
You're welcome.
else, but
Yeah. No,
okay.
if I think of something, I'll let you know. But I'm not 100% sure if I can think of something.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. So let me do this one. We discussed that it's here in the distribution list part. Let me see quickly. Let me quickly go here. No, that doesn't work because this will delete everything and I don't want that. Okay, no, I don't see a quick solution for that. I showed you how those distribution lists work. 2 buttons, or actually 3. One add, one send to. Adding doesn't send anything yet. You have to press that send to button first. Be aware that you first have to create that notification template because it's asked for in the first step. I'm going to skip the next slide because it's not relevant for us. All the notifications that have gone out, you can find them as a provider. I'm not 100% sure if you have that as a reseller as well. So it might be that you have to report up to the owners of the platform or the people who manage the platform. Again, in billing, there is under system, there is a logs, and your outgoing email shows those logs. And you see that there are errors in here because we cannot send out that email. There is a connection refused. We try to send something out to test.oss from test.oss, but of course, we have set up this platform to not send out emails. But we can see the message. In this case, it was a HTML message with all this information in there. I can resend it, or I can make it a little bit more readable by clicking the preview. So I can send out notifications if I want to from here. I can delete them, or I can select it and resend it from here. That's the logs part. This is where you find it. I've done most of my demos already, so let's go to the notification templates. I already talked about changes in terms and conditions. You can clone this. How do you send a welcome email to the account who purchased a new service? Well, there is a welcome notification template in the service plan profile. I showed you that. Outstanding balance. There is an overdue notification in the common notification settings that I can see which template is sent out, edit that one, and send it to the appropriate people. Subscription expiration, I discussed that one as well. Those schedules, make sure, first of all, you set up the schedule, and the second step is in the service plan, make sure it's there. If you do this after people have bought a subscription to it, you have to make sure as well that on that service plan, you update the subscriptions with the notification schedule. Otherwise, only new subscribing customers will have that. That's a very important thing. Otherwise, or you do this upfront and before any subscription exists. If you change it afterwards, you still have to do this. Otherwise, only new subscriptions and renewed subscriptions will have the new schedule. Public announcement, that's a distribution list. And send messages I can look at. So let's do questions. What questions do you have? Let me go to my Teams. Yep. If you don't have questions, can I get a thumbs up? I see thumbs up. Perfect. In that case, since I know probably that I have to step out for 5 minutes, let's do a 20-minute break. So let's be back at X55. So 5 minutes before the hour, please. Because I have to call somebody and probably step out and rush somewhere and rush back. It'll take me 5 minutes, but still, I want to have a little bit extra time. I'm going to stop the recording. Thank you for being here. For now, let's be back at